Okay, intellectual property. Our last presenter from Marco. This is a hot topic. Intellectual property. I discussed the printing press earlier in my keynote. Similar situation. How do you protect people's intellectual property? The patent system doesn't really isn't holding it, because if I create a patent in the U.S., someone in China can create a patent for the same thing. And I mean, try protecting your property on that. I don't want to take up too much time. The floor is all yours, my friend. Marco.
Thank you very much.
The clicker.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Marco. I'm the co-founder and managing director of a Munich-based company that we are helping innovative company and a university to manage and secure their intellectual properties. What we are going to focus on are public blockchains. When we already know that we started using this term blockchain beginning of 2014, before there were just Bitcoin. Then we somehow became ashamed of using this term in the industry, and we came up with this idea. Why don't we use the term blockchain? And so now blockchain basically means everything and nothing. Here, for the scope of this talk about intellectual property, we will refer mostly to public blockchains and in the end to private blockchains. So public blockchains, to me, are blockchains that have some very specific feature. They are decentralized. It means that all the nodes have the same rights. There are no nodes that have bigger power in the network. They are permissionless. It means that every one of you can join this network as a peer. They are uncensorable. It means that all the transactions cannot be stopped by anyone else for any reason. And they are resilient. You can drop off the network will keep going. So for humanity, basically, a blockchain is a universal registry, a public record, the one that we have been dreaming of for millennia. And now it's here. It's a new common. It's a new natural resource. It's like water and the distribution pipeline at the same time. And exactly. But what is in a blockchain? Everyone here was referring to a blockchain as a distributed ledger, distributed database. Okay, so what is made of? It's made of transaction. This is what is on the blockchain. There are no documents. There are no other data, just transaction. Some asset, some token, some currency moving from one wallet to another. So how can we claim that this is a public registry if it only contains transaction? How can you make it more useful? Of course, along with its movement, there is also a timestamp. And in the case of the Bitcoin transaction, the timestamp has a granularity of 10 minutes. That is good enough for many users. Of course, it's not good for stock exchange transaction, but for many users, it's good enough. And we still need to understand how can we link the whole world to this thing. Luckily, we have a cryptographic function called hash that is able to convert any arbitrary digital set of data to a string of bits of a specified length, usually 256 bits. So very short string of bits. You can write it on a A5 paper. And the nice feature of this function is that it's basically impossible to find two different documents that are mapped to the same hash. So it means that the hash is like a cryptographic fingerprint of any digital object. And therefore, we are lucky because there is enough space in most blockchain protocols to stick this short string of bits in a transaction. So it means that we are able to link a transaction to any arbitrary digital object out there. And that object will be proved to be existing at that time, otherwise we wouldn't have the hash. And so it's a kind of certificate that we can start building for object. We can actually have blockchain certificates, okay? I'm so sorry this is not my slides, fortunately. Anyway, these blockchain certificates are basically built on top of this custom transaction that we create on purpose to insert these links. It's like if I wanted to tell you something, and instead of sending you an email, I will wire you 10 euro to your bank account, adding something in the reason for the transfer. So for you to repudiate that you have received that information, you would have to do a lot of work. You would have to change the ledger of your bank and the ledger of my bank. So with blockchains, it's like we are a customer of the same bank. Okay, let's try to do this presentation anyway. Okay, so why we are talking about intellectual property? Because when you are an innovative company, you may have many threats coming to you from different directions. They can come from competitors, from unloyal employees or partners, from hackers, and the damage they can cause you are significant. There could be delay in launching your product, very high legal fees, or if you are not able to secure your freedom to operate on a certain technology, you can even go totally out of market. Let me see what we have here. Okay, so basically what you can do, you can use the blockchain certificate to create very solid foundation for your innovation processes in your company or in your university lab, wherever you're working on producing new stuff. And your this trail of record that you will be able to build on the blockchain can help you to face all the threats that will come to you. And the nice thing is that the time span in intellectual property is pretty big. So you probably will have to prove things like 10 years after. And having very reliable and long-term certificates that can be proved without any intermediary, without the need of any authority, and that you can deploy in any court around the world is quite convenient. So basically, you are going to create a trail of record for your innovation processes. And also, and it doesn't matter if it is hard science, evidences, proof of use, lab notes, software you have written around a certain everything. Try to create as much evidence as you can, and marketing plans, because you never know when it will be necessary for use to prove. And in the end, if you decide that the right strategy for you is disclosing, like in a defensive publishing way, you can also do that in a much better way, and we will set that later. Okay, let me see what, sorry, I go ahead just to see what is. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about two use cases, no matter what's on the screen. The first use case is use this kind of blockchain certificates to create better confidentiality agreements, both with external partners and with employees. Usually, when you write an NDA, you define broadly what kind of information we are going to disclose and should be treated confidentially. So you have to decide if the NDA will be very broad in defining what is going to be disclosed, the NDA will become basically unenforceable. Okay? On the other hand, if you are very specific, detailing, putting into the NDA what you are telling, you are actually disclosing that information that can be auditable by potentially a third party, like during a due diligence. And so basically, we all sign NDAs and confidentiality agreement without thinking much, because usually are not very, very useful. I would have shown here two contracts, one from a big university and another one from a big company, and they were basically the same. Okay? Blockchain certificates can help you to overcome this problem, because you can basically attach a certificate to a confidentiality agreement to say the information we are disclosing are the one referred by this certificate. Okay? So therefore, there is a specific indication of what they are, but they are not included. So it's very convenient and easy. So it's just like making a very traditional legal framework much more simple and efficient, just using a blockchain certificate. And that could be used, as I said, both ways. And also the information that can be stored in a certificate using our solution is also who that information was made available. So the blockchain certificate will prove the existence, the integrity of a certain asset, and the people that had access. So the other example was defensive publishing done better. It means that today you have basically many reasons for deciding to go public with your invention. One could be to deter a competitor from getting a patent in that technology, or you can just disclose for reputation. There are many, many reasons you may want to disclose something. The law requirements are very strict because you need to prove a certain date and you need to prove availability of that disclosure. So usually you can do that in-house. You just put stuff on your website. It's quite a significant amount of work to be able to prove when you put that stuff on your website and if from that moment on that information was available. Or you can use commercial services that will try to do that for you. Problem is that they are quite expensive, so you will always, and when I say expensive, I say a few hundreds euro per document, and you will always delay using these services. So you will not able to cover in a prompt way the perimeter of your invention as it evolves. Using a blockchain solution, you can just create a certificate for the information that you are willing to disclose, and then disclose this information maybe on a distributed file system like IPFS that will give you a special URL that is related to the content of the invention itself. So the certificate will prove at the same time the system, the integrity of a certain information, and the fact that from that date, that information is also available at that location, okay? And this is clearly a big advantage, and the cost and the convenience of doing this, of course, a fraction of the other solutions. So let's see, okay? So what is missing on the blockchain today as identity? As we said before, we can use our blockchain certificates to make a legal framework better, okay? But we still need a legal framework around that certificate, a legal framework that says that it's me disclosing with you, with my name and your name in that contract, okay? Because our identities are not on the blockchain. So that's why I think we will end up one day having identity included on the blockchain. I don't know how. Well, we have in front of us basically two roads. Since when I say identity, I mean a government-issued identity. Those identity could come to the blockchain because maybe authority will embrace blockchain and will somehow play with the blockchain and bring identity there, or because the authority will recognize self-sovereign identity that we are going to create ourselves on the blockchain. So a set of assertions about ourselves that we can prove, like I'm the owner of this Twitter account, I'm the one that published this academic paper on this website, and so on. And those collection of assertion is my identity, and the authority is able to recognize it. I don't know, but for sure it will come. In the meanwhile, I think, okay, let's talk about this later. In the meanwhile, I think that we may also consider an intermediary step that is using private blockchains run by entities that can add values. This is, in my view, the only way that private blockchains make sense, when the people that is running these private blockchains can add something to the value that the participants are bringing. In this case, the value could be identity or could be content validation, since we are talking about intellectual property. If you are wondering what is the legal acceptance of blockchain certificates in the legal systems, here you will have seen, not this slide, but 5 different slides with 3 news items on each of them, presenting all the news development that have been happening in the last few months. It means that many legislations around the world are making explicit acknowledgement of blockchain records, so that you can go to court without bothering with bringing your expert to testify or without having any issue with the admissibility of the evidence itself. In Europe, we have into power since last week the eIDAS legislation that say that courts cannot refuse digital signature, the digital certificates that are not created in a way that is compliant with the standard. So the outlook is very good when it comes to legal acceptance, and I think what you should do if you are producing new ideas in science, in technology, you should just definitely start creating blockchain certificates for your items. That's it, and if you want to know more about Bernstein, we have a booth here, and come over and we have a talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yep. It's really interesting because the way everyone sees utility differently, and what I see is really cool about this is more for open source software like Bitcoin and blockchain tech, is that we're seeing more and more companies having to file like these defensive patents, where they're filing these patents to protect everyone else from being able to use the software and do whatever they want with it. So the ability for someone to take some software, open source, create a blockchain certificate and say this is now for everyone to use. No one could then go and try to patent that data or that software to try to force everyone to give them a fee or license or whatever. It makes defensive patenting a lot easier. I think that'll be something that'll be huge for this.
Yeah, defensive publishing is a nice defensive strategy, not the major one, not the most important. And we actually try to be neutral. We just want to give another tool to implement whatever is your IP strategy for your invention, and then you will have just better tools.
Yeah,
I mean, when we talk to law firms that we are already running a pilot with 3 of them, basically what they say is, we win cases when our clients have the best documentation.
True story.
And that's just a very good way of doing that.
Thank you so much again.